Squishy Bee here with a breaking news report on December 29th, 2020. I just came across this and I thought I would share and then go over a couple of thoughts and discuss some stuff with you guys. This is from the office of Governor Jared Polis. Governor Polis and state public health officials announced first case of COVID-19 variant B.1.1.7 in Colorado. Today, Governor Polis and state health officials announced Colorado's first case of the COVID-19 variant B.1.1.7, the same variant discovered in the UK. The Colorado State Laboratory confirmed and notified the Center for Disease Control, CDC, of the case. The individual is a male in his 20s who is currently in isolation in Elbert County and has no travel history. Public health officials are doing a thorough investigation. The individual is recovering in isolation and will remain there until cleared by public health officials. The individual has no close contacts identified so far, but public health officials are working to identify other potential cases and contacts through thorough contact tracing interviews. There is a lot we don't know about this COVID-19 variant, but scientists in the United Kingdom are warning the world that it is significantly more contagious. The health and safety of Coloradans is our top priority, and we will closely monitor this case, as well as all COVID-19 indicators very closely. We are working to prevent spread and contain the virus at all levels, said Governor Jared Polis. I want to thank our scientists and dedicated medical professionals for their swift work and ask Coloradans to continue our efforts to prevent disease transmission by wearing masks, standing 6 feet apart and when gathering with others, and only interacting with members of their immediate household. So now they're not even saying, with just up to a small number of people from outside of your household, but they're saying only people within your household. So I'll leave a link to where I saw this, but I wanted to go over a couple of thoughts on this and see what you guys think. So I want to pose a question to you. If you were trying to contain a secret that you don't want the whole world to find out about due to panic, and people would then possibly rise up and riot, or they would just not continue life as normal, when you knew something was going to happen that would be catastrophic to the whole world, and you wanted to maintain some normalcy during that in-between stage when you're just preparing the last-minute preparations to go into your, let's say, quotes, ark or bunker or whatever that may be that you think is going to save you from this coming catastrophe. And you needed to have people kind of still working and doing some of the basic things so that you could still get your food and get your supplies and things that you need before you go into your bunker. One of the things that might help with that is to create a worldwide virus that would scare people into compliance, scare people into staying in their homes and not interacting and talking amongst yourselves, something that would provide an excuse to censor people for the good of the community, because they might give false information that could cause people to not comply and therefore spread the virus. Are you getting what I'm putting down here? I think if you really want to know what is going on here, go back and take a closer look at the actual numbers of the CEOs that bugged out in the last year or so. Because obviously not so many people are going to just retire like that all at once unless they know something's coming. And a lot of them, it was way back in the beginning, if not before all of this started. And it just progressively got more and more as the year went on. And this was before you would say you knew that this was going to be as out of control as it was. Even if it was what they're saying it is, okay? Even if it was, and that's a great big if, then how did they foresee that it would get so bad when at the time they were all starting to retire, as you'd put it, that it was just being said that it was only in China at that time, and they weren't really quite sure if it would make it over here. And then it was Italy, and then then it was the cruise ships and stuff. But it was back before that, and at the very beginning, that so many of them left. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that these people would leave such a prominent position that pays so well all at once, all of these people from different companies? So I think that it's pretty obvious that what's going on here. And people are just, they can't handle what is really going to happen. They can't handle it with their mind. People are so now used to being told what to do, brainwashed into being completely reliant on electricity and technology for everything, and don't even want to talk to people by phone. They have to only text, and they would never be able to handle having to go back to the Stone Age where they might have to do things to survive. So what do you think they would do if they suddenly found out what was really going on and what was incoming? They would lose it. They would completely lose it. And people would, I don't think they would worry about the little guys. They're worried about the people that are running the stores that still sell things they need themselves. The smaller, you're in the middle, sort of midway point of companies that they still utilize for home delivery of food, and restaurants that deliver and things like that. These elites are still using all that stuff right now while they're waiting until it's the very last minute when they're like, okay, it's time to go, let's go. And then they all head to their bunkers and leave everybody else to deal with what's going on. And nobody's going to know what's really happening until the very last second. It's going to be a very shocking, sudden thing where everything all happens at once, and nobody's going to have the chance to prepare for it. So, especially people who are lost and don't know the Bible at all and have no hope without Jesus, they're going to just, there's going to be a lot of suicide. There's going to be a lot of people just having nervous breakdowns and stuff. So, I don't mean to be so grim, but I think it's really important that people start reminding themselves of what's really going on here and not get caught up in the political stuff. Don't get caught up in the virus stuff, because I believe that those are two very big distraction efforts to keep people from talking amongst themselves and reading things. And that's why the censorship. They don't want people learning about what's really going on here. And the whole thing, I mean, sometimes I go back and forth a little bit into thinking, well, maybe Trump is sort of what he says he is, where he will, maybe he was one of them and then was like, okay, I don't want to be a part of this. This is getting weird by the minute, and I like being rich, but I don't like all this crazy weirdo satanic crap that they're getting into. And maybe he decided to, go for the people like he says he is, and then they're like, oh no, we'll have no part of that, and he has all their secrets, and they were trying to take him out for that reason. That was slightly plausible to me, but the more and more I see how nothing is ever done to arrest anyone that could be arrested, or override things that could be overridden in order to, like, for example, let's just use this stimulus thing for an example. From the beginning, I did not think for 1 second they were going to give a cent to people, and if they did, it was going to be a little bit here and there, just to give people hope, like the carrot on the stick, to make people think that they had some hope that they might give them this money. But look at the card that they put out in this Illuminati card game years ago, long before this happened, that shows a picture of a helicopter dumping all this cash into a giant toilet, and then people on the outside just trying to grab a little bit that kind of goes over the edge. Tell me that's not them mocking us in advance for them doing this thing. Neither one of them neither side is going to give an inch on this money, but they try to make it out like it's the other side. If you look at one side, the news is just all feeding one story, which is the exact opposite of what the other people, and like Fox News and Newsmax and all these people, feed to the other people. They're seeing on those channels that the Democrats are the ones that are trying to stop them from giving us the $2,000 stimulus checks and stuff, and that they're putting in all this extra pork for things like money for gender studies and what have you over in other countries, and wasteful, stupid stuff, right? And then the other side is saying, oh no, it's Trump that was trying to stop us from giving you the money. It's not us. He's trying to put money in for the military. And so but then neither one ends up giving you the money. You can see how it's now, they relied on all these people they got into the Supreme Court that were supposed to be the saving grace for the Republican side, that would overturn this stuff from the election. And of course they turned out to be traitors and what have you. And the same with the Republicans that were supposed to, okay, so now the Congress has put through this $2,000 thing, and they've agreed, oh yay, there's some hope. And then of course Mitch McConnell shoots it down, which is on Trump's side, supposedly. So I think it's all just a big show, just jerking people back and forth, stressing people out, dragging them along, and the whole time neither side planned on ever giving anybody anything. And I think this entire dog and pony show that's been going on from the beginning, with putting both sides against each other and getting people to fight each other, has all been fake. Personally, I really do think that they're all probably friends behind the scenes. They're all probably Satanists working together. And they're all planning on going into their bunkers together when all of this stuff goes down. And this is just their way to just get people to be distracted, fighting each other rather than working together, standing up against the real enemy, which is them. Well, which is really, it's Satan. We're not really even, the real enemy is not people at all. But still, nonetheless, it's Satan working through these people who are all on the same Team Satan. All right, I think that's what's really going on here. I could be wrong. I have no way of really knowing. Only God knows Trump's heart. And it's possible that he used to be away and then he got saved and changed his ways. That can happen to anybody. But if that's the case, then why has nothing actually come about with arresting these people there's such obvious evidence of the human trafficking and everything? I think that I think that he would never intended to arrest anybody, because I think they're his buddies behind the scenes. I gotta say, that's just my gut feeling. Because, for one, I just know that they tend to not let people live that actually do have dirt on the other people, let alone get into presidency. And I think it's just common sense to me that if he was really who he says he is, then more would be getting done. You know, I mean, come on, how many times do they have to get someone in on his side that everybody gets excited for? I mean, look at all of the hearings that we went through to get these judges in, and how everybody was rooting for these people because they thought for sure they were going to be the ones that would be against abortion, and they would be for religious freedom and everything. And then the second that something happens, I mean, look at what happened to each one of the people that he hired every step of the way from the beginning. Like Jeff Sessions and stuff. Everybody thought that he was going to be the greatest thing, and immediately he recused himself so that he couldn't investigate Hillary Clinton. Come on. And then this just happened over and over and over and over again. So I'm very, very weary of the whole thing. I think it's very fishy. And I wouldn't count on getting a man saving anybody. I think you need to count on Jesus saving you, not anyone in any kind of political party. And I think you should be prepared for what the Bible says is going to happen, and be very smart. Do your own research and think about what is being censored. If something is being censored, then that is what the truth is. They only censor the truth. Because, give me a break, there's so much false stuff out there of ridiculous things and disgusting things and stuff that should be censored that they're not censoring. But yet they're censoring people talking about their doctors, talking about their own professional opinion. Take a quick listen at some of these doctors that were not censored on this website. They were censored from everywhere else, but the smart thing is to put it on a place where they aren't yet able to remove this stuff. So this is something you won't hear likely on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter.
Hello, I'm Elke de Klerk from the Netherlands, and I want to state that we do not have a medical pandemic or epidemic. We also state that COVID-19 should not be on list A for any longer, because we now know that it is a normal flu virus, and the normal flu virus isn't on list A. So we are also starting a lawsuit to the state of the Netherlands to bring this in with a large group of doctors and a really large group of nurses also, because we have contact with 87,000 nurses that do not want the vaccine that is being prepared for us. I want to state, if there is no pandemic, I am wondering why our kids are in schools with masks. There's absolute constitutional rights, and they cannot be infringed or infringed for any medical reason. There's no reason for panic. Also in the medical practice, there's no reason for panic. The panic is created by these false positive PCR tests. 89% until 94% of those PCR tests are false positive. They don't test for the COVID-19, and also the rest is false negative. So we have to look at clinics. We have to start looking at clinic. Medical doctors have to stop looking at those tests. That's very important. Let's go back to the clinics and to the facts. We have in the Netherlands now the regular press publishing the news that the PCR test is not a correct test. So I'm very happy about that. So there's hope. Thank you.
Statistics have come out that up until April 2020, there was 0 deaths in Ireland. These are the official statistics from the CSO, the Central Statistics Office. The first death was in April. And in the whole country in 2020, we have 98 deaths out of 5 million people. So in Ireland, 30,000 people die every year, 10,000 from cardiovascular disease, 10,000 from cancer. The 98 deaths in Ireland are preventable if they had been given prevention and treatment. And we see now that probably there will be thousands more deaths in Ireland just from cancer and cardiovascular disease alone. So in public health, if you're implementing a policy that is more harm than good, this should be stopped. And we as scientists and doctors are saying the lockdown is causing more harm than good. If the politicians, the regulators and the people that are writing these guidelines had the interests of the people of their country at heart, they would stop the lockdown, stop social distancing and masks and all quarantining and bring our country back to a better normal.
So, we are still there, the Swedes. And we have no corona almost now. It's over in our country. So we are approaching herd immunity, I would say. So we are maybe the lowest case rate in Europe right now.
So lockdown made 0 difference, no difference whatsoever. And there's an article in The Lancet which backs this up, saying lockdown does not save lives. And Professor Woolhouse, who's an epidemiologist and advises the government, he said lockdown was a monumental disaster on a global scale, and he never wants to see it again. His excuse for doing it, for advising the government to do it, was panic. Now the panic's over. The lockdown must be ended. The cases are based on a PCR test, which Mike Eden, former chief scientist for Pfizer, has pointed out that roughly 90% of the so-called cases are false positive. So we don't have sick people. And it was in the press this week that 86% of the positive cases had no symptoms. So these are normal, healthy people. We have no reason, none whatsoever, to carry on with lockdown.
So, I mean, I can understand not wanting people to incite violence or incite people rising, up against the government and whatever. But we do have a freedom of speech and a freedom of opinion. And that's being censored. And people are being threatened, and people's families are being threatened. These are violent, dangerous people. That I can tell you just from experience. These people, that's the way they work. I was drowned repeatedly to keep me from talking when I was a kid. That's how I was told. That's how they got it through to me to not to go and get help. Because they knew that you do these terrible things to people, and eventually they'll be afraid not, to say anything, because they have ears everywhere. I couldn't tell anybody anything. You couldn't even tell a child, another friend that was a kid, because they were all being abused. All the people in this community were being abused, and they themselves were messed up and afraid. So this is the way these people operate. So anyway, this is my opinion, but I don't want anybody to get sick, obviously, because I wouldn't put it past them to create a real disease, and I have known some people that have gotten sick, but I think that the purpose behind it is very, very nefarious, and I think that they're using this to distract and control, and that there's something much, much bigger coming. And something else that really bothered me while we're talking about this? There's a couple of things that have been just gnawing at me. One, did you see how Rudy Giuliani said over Christmas that he had something that was going to happen, that was going to come out all at once after Christmas, beginning of January, that was going to basically blow up America?
So starting after Christmas, this is really going to blow up. Because the evidence that all these crooked television networks, newspapers, big tech, and the leadership of the Democratic Party all have been giving you is false. And you're going to find it out all at once. It's going to be very shocking to the country.
For one, I don't like the terminology. And two, part of me has wondered if they're really pushing this whole thing with Biden, making people accept that he is actually going to transition into power, and then they're going to suddenly flip it and Trump is going to end up in there, and then all of these crazy people that were rioting before are really going to lose it. If you think there was a lot of violence and stuff in the streets before, what would that do if they had? I mean, you think about it. What is the worst thing when you get something that you're happy and excited about it and you're celebrating, and then someone takes it away? That's so much worse than if you hadn't had it to begin with, right? And that's what they would be doing. These people have had this delirium over the last 4 years over Trump, and then to suddenly think that now this other guy's going to get in there that they think is going to save them and is going to do all the things that they want him to do, which he wasn't going to anyways. But let's say, in their minds, in their odd, twisted minds, they think that he is going to be their savior. And then all of a sudden, you find out, no, it's 4 more years of the guy that you hate, and, your whole 4 years, the last years, have been just all about destroying this guy. And then the other thing that has been really bothering me is
we've been through some stuff. We've gone through some of the most complex military operations this country's ever conducted.
What the heck is that? What kind of military operation was Pence working on with this guy? I think he was the director of national security, if I recall. I'm going from memory. My memory isn't the greatest, so I'll have to look this up again. But just going from memory, how odd is that? And what's Mike Pence doing working with the military on something like this to begin with? What could that be? Part of me wonders if it's them getting ready to enforce this vaccine, because they're going to utilize this new mutation that we're talking about here today as a way to excuse it. And I also saw that they're now saying that they're going to be vaccinating children without their parents' consent or even knowledge. And that's horrifying. Horrifying that they're able to do these things. I don't know what kind of world we're living in here, but I don't want to be any part of it, and I can't wait to leave. I can tell you that much. I cannot wait for the rapture, because the more we're here, I almost wonder sometimes if God allows some of this stuff for Christians that are still attached to this world to see these things so that they'll let go of that really strong grip they have on this world, and they start to say, yeah, no, maybe this isn't really where I belong, because there's an awful lot of people out there that are like that. Not me. I'm peace out. I've been that way for a long time. I could not wait for a long time to get out of here. I knew this was not where I belonged. But there's a lot of people that are really hanging on hard to their jobs or to their life. They just love it here, and and family and friends, and they don't want to give it up. And we're not supposed to do that. We're supposed to put our sights on the next world, store up our treasures in heaven, not here. Okay, so where, thieves can break in and moths can destroy, it says. We need to store our treasures in heaven where they can be forever. And so the other thing, I don't know, I've lost my train of thought now. Completely what I was talking about. The military thing. The other thing is, could it be that they're preparing because of, if they were to, is it connected to this Rudy Giuliani thing of what he's talking about, where January 6th, where they're going to supposedly have some sort of deciding vote or blocking of the electors or something on January 6th. What if that does go through and they're suspecting that people will lose their crap over it and that the military has to come in order to deal with that? That's a possibility. What do you think? What else could it be that they're doing that's so complex? But Trump did say that he was going to be using the military to hand out these vaccines. And in case you hadn't seen it, the other thing that keeps coming to my mind is that dream that I had, that of where I was driving and I was going back home and I came across these military vehicles that blocked the road and wouldn't let me by. And the guy was going, "In or out, ma'am, in or out." And I was like, "What are you talking about? My family's in there." And I had to make a choice. Do I want to go in where my family was, or did I want to stay out where it was safe? Because as I was standing there, I could see these soldiers all running out of their vehicles and going door to door, kicking the doors in and taking the people. And that was just the most realistic dream. And that was like one of the several dreams that I had that all had come true. This one, though, it hasn't come true yet, but it sure is looking like it could. Because if the military is going to start giving out these vaccines, who's to say what will happen to those who refuse to take them? Why would you need the military to do that and not the people that are doing the tests? Why can't the same people that are doing the testing do the vaccines? Unless they expected resistance. That's really suspicious to me. I don't know. A lot of you may not believe in the fact that we still get prophetic dreams today. And I'm not saying that I'm a prophet in any way, but several of the dreams that I had came true. And it makes you wonder, what is this? Does God still speak to us through dreams today? He does say in the Bible that in the last days He will pour out His Spirit on all flesh, and people will have dreams, and people will have visions. And is that what I had? I mean, there were so many that came true. If you go back and you look at some of the ones, and some that I didn't even post. Like, for example, I had a dream quite a while back, that President Putin got very, very sick. He was secretly sick, and he didn't want anybody to know about it. And I had met with him, and this is how he had told me that he was very sick, but not to tell anyone, that it was a secret. And it bothered me so much that I wrote to him. I wrote to him after this dream, and I told him, please go and get checked out by a physician, because I don't know if this is true, but this is the other dreams that I had. They all came true, all these other dreams, and this one bothered me so much. Day after day, it was like I was concerned for this guy. I really had concern. I don't know this guy. But I wrote to him and told him about it. And then, I don't know if you saw this, but just like a month ago, we found out that he was secretly sick. And he didn't want anybody to know about it. Very, very sick. I'm not exactly sure what is going on at this point, but there's talk that he may end up having to leave because he's so sick. And he kept it a secret for a long time. Why would I dream that? That's just such a strange thing. It makes me wonder if it's just strictly so that I would tell others and then they would believe in God. Because, that the other ones had come true too. And I posted those, but I should have posted this one. It bothered me for a long time, but I thought, that's just probably just a weird dream. It didn't seem like it was relevant to, the Bible and the stuff that was going to be happening. But maybe it was just to show, number one, the time frame, perhaps, because part of me wonders if a lot of these dreams were just to strictly show that, number one, sometimes God still sends you dreams that are warnings. And the dreams that I had were all things that happened all around the same time. It's all been since 2016 that all these things were really coming true, except for the first two that I had came true immediately within like a day or two. Because I think God was trying to show me, hey, get my attention, that these are real. Pay attention to your dreams. And so the first one, I don't know, just to recap, in case you haven't seen these, the first one was of my brother's dog dying. And the very next morning, I got a call that his dog had died. And then the other one was of this girl that had been taken, and she was murdered, and then her fingertips were cut off in order to keep her from being identified. And then I saw her on the news, and it was like, that's the girl from my dream. And so I paid attention, and sure enough, she had been murdered and dumped in a dumpster, and her fingertips had been cut off. And that had never happened to me before. I'd never had dreams that had come true like that before. And I didn't, I never would even consider telling strangers about this sort of thing. But I did tell my family at the time. I told them because it was bothering me so much. And so I told them. So then, of course, they all believed when the stuff came true. Then they started taking it seriously. And then I had several other dreams of things that were back in 2009, I believe it was, but that they were warnings for this period, the 2016 4-year period that's been going on over the last several years. Those things were all coming true. The dream about the flash floods and the earthquake and the lava and the tornadoes in New York and stuff like that ended up happening. I watched one form down the street from my house. I watched it form right in front of me in a field. And we just don't have tornadoes here in New York generally. And then just this increased hurricane thing and the boat washing up from the hurricane, that thing came true. So if you want to take some time, go back and watch those. Feel free. But that's just kind of a slight recap of some of the things. And then, of course, there was the one that hasn't come true of New York City getting destroyed. And that was the one that when I had that dream, in the dream, God told me that He would be giving this same dream to a lot of people around the world. And that one day I would know when it was time to share this video, and that other people would also be sharing that video, be sharing that dream, with strangers. And I did post this video, and then I started looking to see if other people were doing the same thing. And all these other people were posting dreams about New York City getting wiped out as well. And so, how crazy is that, though? I mean, that all these people would have this same, not only would they have this same dream, but that they would all start posting it all around the same time. Everybody started posting these dreams about New York City getting wiped out right around the same time as I posted mine. It's just mind-blowing to me. What would you do with that if you were given that? Because part of me, I'm one of those people, I don't want to do the wrong thing. I rethink and rethink and rethink everything to make sure I'm doing the right thing by God. And I had asked several pastors. I had looked up several videos to see sermons about this, to see what other pastors think, and they disagree with some people believe that dreams from God that ended when the Bible was completed, and others say no, that doesn't end until Jesus returns and is reigning on earth, because it's just a different way of interpreting the way that the Bible words things. And I've kind of come to my own opinion, and it may differ from yours, but my own opinion is that I believe we do still have some of these spiritual gifts until we don't need them anymore. And that's when Jesus is here and he is able to, there's no need, because everybody's going to believe in Jesus, obviously. He's going to be reigning here on earth. So I think that's when the Bible says when the perfect comes, then we'll have no need for these gifts anymore. And I think Jesus is what's perfect. So I think that's what it is. But other people say, no, it's when the Bible came that we don't need that. But if that were the case, and the dreams were gone, and people don't have dreams that come true, then why would the Bible tell you that you need to discern the difference between whether these dreams and visions were coming from God or whether it was coming from demons? Because demons will also mess with people and give them dreams and give them visions and stuff in order to get them to then deceive other people. So you have to compare these things to Scripture to make sure that they match. And I would never want anyone to do otherwise. In fact, I would have never posted or even discussed these things with people if I hadn't done that myself. Looked to see if they matched what Scripture said was going to happen. Because I would never want to say something that went against Scripture, because that's the final authority. And because, number one, the Bible talks about having killed false prophets back in the day. So he took that very seriously. So I took it very seriously. I didn't want to mislead anyone. That would be the worst thing I could think of to do. I would never want to speak on behalf of God or anything like that. But I just feel like if God was telling me these things in order to share them so that people would see these things come true and then believe, if it was just being done for God's glory in order to point them to Jesus, it's not to be pointed to me in any way. I don't have any purpose other than getting people to believe in God. So, but there's other people that would do these things in order to make money, in order to deceive people into going along with like some weird cult or something. There's a lot of really evil people doing things for very bad reasons. So you do have to watch out for those, and you do have to compare these things to make sure that it matches what God says in the Bible, because if it doesn't, then you should throw it out. And if I were to ever say anything that doesn't match what the Bible says, throw it out. Because for one, I'm human. I can make mistakes. Two, I'm a woman. Women especially get deceived. That's why the Bible tells people that, that you should ask your husband. I know people might not agree with that, but it's because women are made as emotional creatures and we're more easily deceived. And that's why Eve was so easily deceived in the beginning. So, because we're caring, emotional creatures compared to men who I think are naturally skeptical, right? So I think that Satan deliberately preys on the weaker. God says we're the weaker vessel. And that's why we need protection of our father in our household. And then when we get married, he gives that over to the husband, who then is there to protect the woman from that point forward. That's why the father gives the bride over to the husband. So we need protection. And it's okay to be that weaker vessel. That's just the way that we are. There's a need for our traits as being emotional beings. That's why we make good moms. That's why we make good caretakers, because we genuinely care. And so there's a place for each role in the household. And when we follow the proper roles that God set out for us, I think things just kind of fall into place better. That's been my experience, because I always was, before I got saved, I always had this really tough exterior, and I always had to be defensive and everything, obviously because of what had happened to me. And I didn't trust any. I still, to this day, I don't trust people. But I'm getting better about that. But as for, not to be like a feminist or something, but I always felt like I had to be strong, and I had to learn every defense, like martial arts, that I could, to be able to defend myself in case somebody were to ever try to hurt me again. And so I had to develop this tough wall around me to protect myself. But we're not meant to be that way. And so once I got saved, and I met my husband, who is also a born-again believer, and we just both believed that we should go through our relationship the way that the Bible sets us up to be. That ended up just turning out so much better than you could imagine. Everything falls into place when we do the roles that we're meant to do, because God knows what he's doing. And he had a system in place of how it's supposed to work, and it really does work when we don't rebel against what he suggests for us. It's to our own peril when we do. It's not a matter of just that, being righteous and obedient. It's a matter of just, God is very smart, and he knows what works and what doesn't work. And he doesn't want us to hurt ourselves. And sometimes we do, by thinking we can do things better on our own than what God sets out for us to do. Or often we just don't read the Bible, so we just don't learn these things. And once you do, you find there's so much life instruction in there. There's so much information in there that would make your life so much easier had we learned it sooner. I wish I had learned it better myself at a younger age. But I was always drawn to it. That's how I got away from, the terrible circumstances that I was in, because God put Christians in my path that helped me escape and helped me get away from this. And that helped me to be strong. And I always believed in God, even as a young child, because how can you see people worshiping demons and sacrificing things to Satan and doing all these terrible things, and hating God so much that they would do these things, and see the things that they're given, the power and money that they're given in return by doing these deals with Satan? How can you not believe that there's a God? It would be impossible to see that and not know that there's another side to it. And so that's one of the things that makes me wonder how anyone can see how much they hate Jesus, and they hate the Bible, and they hate Christians, and they try so hard to get us out of the picture. And they don't, even in, like, for example, I know I'm going on and on here, and this is probably becoming a really long video, but once you get me started, so in Hollywood, when you look at the types of movies and stuff that they put out, you notice they never talk about Christians in a good light And whenever they do bring up Christianity, it's always Catholicism. They're always Catholic. It's always priests and stuff. Even when you're talking about things in politics and stuff, it's always Catholics. Look closely at that. Whenever they say, oh, well, like the people on Fox News and stuff that claim to be Christians, and maybe they are. I don't know these people personally. But notice that if you look closely, they're all Catholics. That's not the same as Christianity. Okay, that's a very different belief system. And they know that that Catholics were up to some really terrible things. The leadership in the Catholic Church with the whole child pedophilia and everything, that is, and it's worse. It's worse than anyone even realizes, because it's more than just molestation and all of that stuff. There were murders, and a lot of murders. I believe that the people at the top of that church were actually sacrificing people, sacrificing babies and stuff to Satan, and that they actually worship Lucifer secretly. Sometimes not so secretly. If you look at their architecture and if you listen carefully and translate what they're saying in some of their songs and stuff that they're singing to Lucifer openly. People just don't pay attention. They don't pay attention to these things. And their architecture and their layout of their buildings and everything, it's all satanic. Just take a little closer look at it sometime. But anyway, that's another whole topic. But really, if you look at the whole thing with even President Trump, he's a Catholic. He's not, I mean, when he's talking about being a Christian, I mean, he went to a Catholic Jesuit church and schooling and all of that stuff. So that bothers me a lot, because I know a lot about the Catholic Church that is very, very disturbing. And so, and if you notice in movies and stuff, anytime they show other Christians, what they're calling Christians, they're always the crazy people. They portray us as the crazy people. And now in real life, they're trying to portray us as that now. They try to connect us with stuff that is, crazy conspiracy and stuff, but it's all real stuff that we're talking about here. They're just combining us with other people that aren't true Christians. And just like how Christians get blamed for everything that the Catholic Church does. When you talk to people who are atheists and know nothing about the Bible, and they find out you're a Christian, they start immediately attacking you about, well, what about all these Catholic priests that do all this? How do you explain that? Or how do you explain the Crusades? And how do you do this? And it's like, they have nothing to do with me. Those aren't Christians. What do you say about them? I don't know. I'm not their keeper. They're not anything to do with born-again Christianity at all. And it's really smart and deceiving trick that Satan has done by doing that. And or they will combine us with the prosperity preachers and stuff, people that are in these big mega churches that are obviously not real Christians. They combine us with that. And that's another thing that bothers me about Trump, is how he surrounds himself with people like Kenneth Copeland and stuff. All these people that are obvious wolves in sheep clothing. I mean, that's really a red flag to me. Because either he is this really poor, sad sack that just, has the worst case of bad luck and unfortunate circumstances that when he finally did try to become a Christian, that he just happened to get tricked by all of these fake Christian preachers, or he just surrounded himself with these people on purpose in order to get be able to say that he is a supposed Christian, to gain the support of Christians, but then at the same time show the people that he wants to, to think, no, hey, I'm not really a Christian. See, look, I'm with all these fake people. I'm just doing this to try to gain support of the Christian vote, because they do stuff like that too. They signal each other through a lot of really sneaky ways. So anyway, I'd love to know what you guys think about this stuff. I know I got really off topic there, but these are just some things that have been really bugging me lately about all of this stuff, and I'm really wondering if I'm the only one that finds that really suspicious, or do you guys just think I'm overreaching with this stuff? And what do you think about this new mutation? Do you think that this is just another step up of their efforts to try to lock us down a little bit harder, and get people to, because they could see that people were like, yeah, I'm not taking that vaccine. A huge percentage of people are like, no, why? And so then they had to think, oh, well, they must not think that this virus is bad enough to risk this vaccine. So what do? We got to make the virus worse. What do we got to do to make it to the point? What will it take to get these people to accept this vaccine in order to go along with their plot? And this could be it. It could be this or some other thing that'll be a worse mutation after this. Because that was one of the reasons why, even if I didn't suspect them for all of the underhanded, dirty stuff that these people are up to, and it was just pure science that I was basing my decision on, you should know that new novel viruses take a long time to go through this period of mutating. They mutate a lot before they kind of settle on a few different things. And even the regular flu mutates all the time. That's why the flu shot doesn't work, because they will give you a shot for only the one or two types of flu that the shot is for, and then people still get the flu and they're like, what the heck? And it'll be because they got the other type of flu than what they got the shot for. So it would be even more so with something that is this new. So it would be so stupid to risk your life with all of these different types of unknowns with this thing. And then you add the fact that you can't hold the people responsible that made this thing if something goes wrong. That's red flag number 2. And then knowing that what this stuff is made out of is the most ridiculous thing, that they would think that people would just be totally fine with having something injected in them that has aborted fetuses in it. I mean, give me a break. I mean, most people won't even look at what is in this stuff, and they'll just be like, oh, just sign me up. But people are starting to get on to what is going on here. And you can censor us all you want. It's too late. People know. People know about this stuff. And even though people, they're shutting down a lot of the social media, they're censoring YouTube and stuff like that. So this is, again, what else can people do? They can get together and talk in their own house. They can get together and talk at restaurants. They can get together at social events and things and whisper and talk about this stuff and tell their friends about what they know. Okay, how do you stop that? This virus, that's how. Lockdowns. Telling people that they can't, giving people the fear of contact tracing, using the fear of like a painful test to find out whether you have it or not. People don't want this horrible thing shoved up their nose, and they have a a much less invasive way that even works better of testing people, but they don't do it, and they do that for a reason. Because they want people to be afraid of having to get tested. That's another fear tactic, to get people to avoid each other, because they don't want you talking. They don't want you near each other. So do it anyways. You need to figure out a way to get together and tell people. Put a sign in your front yard warning people, so that as they drive by your house, they're learning about something. Direct them to a website instead of YouTube, because if YouTube goes down, at least maybe for now, they can go to a direct website address or something where you can then tell them everything. That sort of thing. That's what I was thinking about doing, because I've now moved to a busy row where I'm trying to think of what I should put. I was thinking of putting a sign in the front yard that, that changes with different scriptures and things like that. But maybe somebody wants to put some sort of message directing people to a website that once they get there, then they can see the truth of all these other things as well. I might have to do that. So it's just been hard because I've been so sick. And obviously Satan is trying really hard to keep me from doing this stuff, because now he's taken out my good hand that I have to use for everything. He's taken out my ability to have my glasses on so that I can't read and stuff. So it's really hard. I have to pick like short articles that I can do for short periods of time because it's so painful to have my glasses on. So he's trying really hard to take me down. And then trying to take down my family members when he can't get to me. I don't know if I mentioned this, but my daughter last week woke up to this sound next to her that sounded like a whooshing wind. And she looked over to find 4-foot-high flames coming out of her couch. She was sleeping on her couch that was engulfed in flames. And she put out the fire and then realized that it was this cord, that this charging cord had just caught on fire. It wasn't charging anything, but it was all melted, and that's right where the fire was. And so they looked to figure out, what could have happened with this cord, and apparently they're sold on Amazon, and they're from China. Shocker. And because they're from China, nobody can have any recourse from them, but that they have caused multiple fires, this same cord. So just, I don't know if you can tell from the picture, but it has like this, like a braided coating over it, so you can't see if the wires are starting to fray. I don't know if you've had this problem, but sometimes these charging cords, from you plugging things in and then like knocking your phone off or whatever, the thing gets bent. And when this happens repeatedly, it starts to get a short in the wire, and you can usually see that, but because the way this one is made, it's covering that, you can't see if it's starting to go bad. So that's what she's thinking might have happened, that it was just shorting out. But it was plugged in, I believe, to like a power strip at the one end, but nothing was plugged into the other end. But it was the end where something would be plugged in that caught on fire, which I thought was the weirdest thing. And on top of that, I don't know if I mentioned this previously, but my grandson he's only 5, and he was praying, and he had asked God, when do we get to go to heaven and see heaven? And my daughter said, oh honey, we don't get to know when that is. And he said, shush, I'm talking to God. And so she was like, oh, sorry, okay. So then she was really quiet, and then he just was quiet, praying for a few minutes, and then eventually he turns to her and he says, God says we get to see heaven in 88 days. So she was like, kind of like, oh, okay. And she told me this the next day. She was like, you aren't going to believe what this little guy just said. And she told me about this. And so then we were thinking, what a weird thing to say. It's so specific, 88. And so we were thinking about that for a while. And then this fire happened. And then, I don't know, it's just maybe we're seeing into this more because this was on our mind. But look at this picture. Is this us, or are we just seeing things? Does this look like a child praying, kneeling and praying to you? To me, it looked like a child facing the wall, kneeling and praying. And then, I don't know if you can see the picture of these little sticky notes, these Jesus sticky notes here, but those were sitting right there by this fire, and they're paper, and they didn't catch on fire. They just got kind of like singed around the edge like that, but we're sitting right there, and how those didn't catch on fire is just crazy to me. And then she had put the fire out with her, like another pillow, and she took the pillowcase off of this pillow, and underneath you could see that it made this burnt marks all on the inside of the pillow where it had been putting out the flames. And doesn't that look like a creepy face that got kind of like burned into this pillow? I don't know, we're just kind of creeped out because weird stuff had been happening at her house already. And we know that sometimes demons will mess with Christians when they're doing things to try to share the gospel. And my daughter does a lot to do that. She shares the gospel with a lot of people. She even goes on to like sites that are like atheists versus Christians and tries to win over atheists and stuff, which to me is really stressful because they say like horrible things to people. And it can be really stressful. But she does it anyway. And so I'm thinking maybe demons have been messing with her because, for one, they were finding broken glass on the floor in their house in different places. And they would clean up and there was nothing around that could have fallen and broken this glass. And they would sweep it up. And then like the next day it would be back there again. And there's nothing around that would have broken, just broken glass on the floor. And then other times, there's just like ice sitting on the ground in different places, like melting, but there's still ice. They're like partially melted. And then another time, there was a whole raw egg just randomly on the floor. And this was like, my daughter kind of like blocks off some of the rooms so that my grandson just stays in part of the house where they're at, so he doesn't get into anything, and they just kind of play in this side of the house. And these were in other areas where he wouldn't have been able to get into. So, and there was nobody else there. Her husband's at work all day, and then she's in the other part of the house with my grandson. There was really no reason for that to be there. So some really creepy, weird things were happening. So I don't know if you happen to think of it and wouldn't mind praying for my family, protection over my family because of what I'm doing, because demons and Satan don't like for people to get out there and share their secrets, and also to lure away their people to Christ. So they will do some really underhanded stuff to try to stop people. So I could use any extra help I can, because he's definitely been trying to take out my health so that I can't do this stuff. And I'm not going to be deterred, but it is making it challenging. It's been really challenging to do stuff without number one, without my eyes. I can't see without my glasses. And it's really hard to wear my glasses right now. And it's really hard to do things when you can't use your main hand. When, you're trying to type or try to use the mouse. for the computer and stuff, you'd be surprised how many things you really need your hand for. And then on top of that, I am having a really hard time walking because of my my bad foot is getting like this again, and it's and my legs are all swollen from it, and my fingers like are huge, all swollen, and this just feels like my hand is going to explode. It's like having your hand in lava, like this burning, like horrible nerve pain, and it's like that day and night. It doesn't seem to ever let up, and so it's getting challenging, but I appreciate any prayer, and I do believe in the power of prayer, because I should have been dead so many times this year from the kidney failure, and from the this autonomic dysfunction thing with this blood pressure crashing thing. I should have died from that. They can't explain why my heart just keeps starting back up again, and even though my heart rate was dropping to like 30, I still survived this several times, and I think it's just the power of prayer and God just saying, nope, I'm not done with what I need for you to do. And so I trust that He will get me through as long as needed until I've done whatever it is that I need to do. And that's one of the reasons why I don't stress about this virus, because I can't fathom how God would have gotten me through 2 major car accidents, a serious electrocution that put me into the ICU while I was 9 months pregnant with my daughter, my youngest daughter at the time. And I survived that, and she survived unscathed, and, multiple horrible diseases. In fact, like what I was talking about earlier, about my last video about having this RSD and the trigeminal neuralgia, both of those are on the list of the top 10 worst and most painful conditions that you can have. In fact, the trigeminal neuralgia is known as the suicide disease, because so many people commit suicide because of the pain is so unbearable from that. And for me to have 2 of them and still manage to keep going is only God can do that. That is definitely a Holy Spirit thing. I'm powered by the Holy Spirit, because there's nothing I could do on my own accord, because I am a weak, puny human being, and that is just the power of Christ that is just dragging this carcass around. But anyways, so I appreciate praying for each other. I pray for you guys every day, and I really appreciate the comments and being able to just chat with other Christians. It's just such a blessing to me. So that has been one of the best things about being able to have this channel, is to be able to talk to each other like this. So I hope we can continue to do that, and we don't get censored right off of YouTube completely. But I'm trying to look into other ways that I can keep communication in case that does happen suddenly, because that could happen very abruptly at any point. I think one of the reasons why it hasn't yet is because I don't monetize, and I think that's how a lot of people get mostly censored, is because of the agreements that they have with the ads, and you're so much more limited with that. And just because I'm kind of tiny, and I try to stay sort of small so that I can just kind of chat with other Christians and kind of stay under the radar. But it's helpful to be able to share some of my life experiences without it becoming to a point where I draw too much attention, and then people start to say, hey, there's somebody here that actually knows some of the secrets of the stuff that they don't want people knowing about. And I'm trying to avoid that. So it's probably good not to just kind of like post some of the videos, anything that I post that I'm talking about my childhood and some of this stuff that I like don't post it like on your Facebook and stuff like that, because if the wrong people saw it and I did draw attention to me, I would probably disappear overnight. And I mean, not necessarily me, but my channel, and I wouldn't be able to then be on here to talk to people. But maybe just kind of like quietly share the information with people you trust, and just keep it in mind. So when you're trying to do things to protect your children, that was my main goal, was to help parents to be able to properly protect their children when you know of the things that are out there that you can watch out for, because things that I wish that I had known, even me who had had these terrible things happen to me, things then ended up happening to two of my girls that I didn't find out until after it happened, because of a doctor's office that had some really dangerous, scary people there that I had no idea that this was a thing. And I was so young that I didn't really, who would have even guessed, that you weren't safe at a pediatrician's office. And so it can happen to anyone, even people that are watching for these things because they know it exists. So you really got to watch closely where your kids are. Don't leave them alone. Don't leave them with people you don't know really, really well. And even then, I'm really big on nanny cams. I think that would be a really good thing to do, or be able to use the things with your cell phone where you can look in on your kids anytime if you have to leave them with people, because you have, it's unfortunate that you have to be that way, but these days you just can't trust anyone. I mean, some of the people that hurt me the most were people that I was related to. So you just never know. And the fact that such a well-known chain of daycare center was doing terrible things to kids, and that it's still in practice and going on, that people all over this country take their kids to this chain, is just terrifying to me. So these are just a couple of the reasons why I got into this, just so that I could help people, keep people safe, and help people keep the next generation of kids safe, because nobody kept me safe. Nobody came to my rescue other than Jesus, and Jesus can come to anyone's rescue, no matter who you are or what you're going through. He's going through it with you. And if I look back now and I can see all the times that he tried to send people in my path to try to help me, and now I realize it all makes sense now that I can see how he was there the whole time trying to help me, and I'm so grateful for that. And so this can be for anyone, no matter what you're going through or what you've done. Jesus is forgiving of anything and everything, and you should never wait to go to him. Don't think that you have to clean up your act first and then go to Jesus. No, you go to Jesus and then he'll help you clean up your act, because you can't do it on your own. It's through the sanctification, through the Holy Spirit, that you actually grow as a Christian, and it takes time. It takes a while, but it's all begins with just believing in Jesus, and that he died on the cross for you, so that he could take your place, and so that you could go to heaven. All of the things, the sins of everyone in this world were taken out on that man, that God-man, that came down here and lived a life as a human being, lived a perfect life that we couldn't possibly live, and then gave his life on our behalf, paid that debt for us that we could never have afforded to pay that price. And he paid it for us. You just have to say, I accept this. Please pay my debt. Please pay my debt. I am in over my head. I can't pay it myself. And a lot of people just have that attitude. No, it can't be that easy. It's just too easy. There must be something more to it. What's the catch? There's no catch. That's the whole point. The point is you have to just give it up and give it to Jesus, and stop trying to do it yourself, because you can't. We can't do it ourselves. Otherwise, what would be the point of him having to come down here and die for us? There'd be no point if we could just do it ourselves, or we could add to it. He said, it is finished. When he died, he said, it is finished. That means nothing more needs to be added. That's it. It's over. All that had to be done was done that day on that cross. So stop trying to add to it for those who want to try to do this and do that. You want to do good works for your rewards, that's a whole different thing. Go ahead, do that. But it's not going to change your salvation. It's not going to add to or take away. It's just the sprinkles on the top. It's just something that you can do in order, because you love Jesus and you want other people to have what you have. And so that's why we do good things for others and why we try to share the gospel. And it's not because we feel like we have to. It's because we want to. Because we're so thankful for what he did for us, that we see these other people struggling to carry this huge weight that we carried for years, until Jesus took that weight from us and said, let me carry this for a while. Let me carry this. You've come and get some rest. You've been dragging this weight with you for all your life. There's no need. He's so much stronger and more powerful than us. He has much bigger muscles and can carry that weight for us. And so we just have to let him. Just have to stop holding on to the end of the chain, saying, no, let me do it. Let me do it. No, just let him do it. Because he will just keep throwing stuff at you sometimes until you give it up. And he's like, can I take this now? Can I take it? Can I take this now? Or are you going to just keep pushing to do it yourself? Because we can do this all day. I got all day. And he will do that. He'll just keep throwing more challenges at you until you finally give up and say, okay, I can't do this. This is too much for me. And you don't want to get to that point. You don't want to have to get to that point. Just give it up now, because you're just putting more work on yourself than need be. It's unnecessary. The whole point of all these things, these calamities that are going on, are for those who are so stubborn and don't want to repent. And it's going to keep happening, where he's going to keep, it says, the Bible talks about how he will just keep giving these calamities, and then he'll stop and he'll check. Anybody repenting yet? Any repentance down there? And some of them will. Some of them will be like, oh yeah, you got me now. I get it. And they'll get saved. And then but a whole lot won't. And so then he'll send some more calamities, a few more. And then he'll stop. And then he'll look. Any reaction down there? Any repentance? And then you'll get some more that will be like, okay, all right, I'm starting to catch on here. Just like you hear people talking about what is going on in 2020. It's the same thing. It's these people starting to realize something is going on here. Something weird is going on. And more people are talking about the Bible, and God is allowing people to hear more about this. I mean, Satan tries to block that stuff all the time, but people are starting to catch on, and a lot of it is sneaking through. And people are hearing about it more and more, stuff they never heard about the Bible before. And so then some of those people are repenting. But then eventually we're going to get into tribulation, and it's going to be, as that time goes on, it's going to get more and more where every time he stops to check, any more repentance down there? Any more? And it's going to be no, we do not repent. We don't want anything to do with it. And we blame you for all of these things. We know it's you that's sending fire and hail from heaven. And we know it's you causing all these earthquakes. And we hate you for it. Instead of repenting of their sins, they will then just do the exact opposite. And by the end, all that will be left will be those who have chosen the other side. They've chosen the Antichrist. And that's why, again, you can never be tricked into taking the mark of the beast. It'll be a choice you have to make. And I think that's why I think you see this halfway through tribulation, that the whole mark of the beast thing happens, because during the first half, it's God doing these calamities to say, hey, Last call. Anybody else down there? Any takers? Anybody else have a little change in attitude? No? Okay, well, let's try an asteroid now. Let's see if this jogs your thought process. Let's see if this changes any minds. And then a few tsunamis and, various other horrible weather things and stuff. That all of that will happen in the first half of tribulation when it starts. And I believe all of it will be kicked off with the fact that all these people disappeared, and it's gonna cause all these terrible disasters and things, planes crashing, cars crashing and stuff, because there'll be unmanned vehicles, unmanned plane, people that are doing surgery. The doctors are doing surgery on people, and all of a sudden the doctor disappears, and there's a person laying on the table, half cut open, and half the staff is gone. Because you're going to find a lot of people that are doctors are believers because they see some crazy stuff as people are about to die. And you hear some crazy stories of people that witness, and nurses that witness things of people dying and what happens to people who are believers versus people who die that are lost. And some of those stories will make believers out of anyone. And so you're going to see a lot of them disappear. And so there'll be a lot of chaos at the beginning. Remember what they do with chaos. They create order out of chaos. So that's where you're going to see the Antichrist eventually come in and say, he'll fix everything. And then at that point, remember, halfway through, most of the people who get saved because of they start believing, because a lot of those people at the beginning, I think, are going to be the people that we as believers were sharing all of these stories about the Bible with them before we leave in the rapture. We were telling them, hey, you need to get saved now because there's going to be a rapture, and then all of these things are going to happen. Oh yeah, what things? Asteroids, and there's going to be this, terrible earthquakes everywhere, and a third of the forests are going to burn up, and a third of the animals and the fish and the birds, all of them are going to die, and starvation and disease. And then there's going to be this Antichrist that rises up, and he says he's going to fix everything, and then all this stuff. They're going to be now, they're like, oh yeah, sure, okay, right, this lady's crazy, none of this stuff is really going to happen. What happened to this person? How did they get so nuts? When did they become such a Bible crazy conspiracy person? And then when we all disappear, because we've been saying nothing but rapture, rapture, rapture for all these months, which they just blew off and mocked and laughed at, then they're going to see, oh my gosh, they really did leave. They really did this rapture thing they were talking about. And then they're going to be like, well, what do we do now? And so that's why it's really important to have these left behind letters for those people that, you say, look, in this letter, you say, I know that you're here alone, and I know you feel like you're abandoned and you're scared and you don't know what to do, but it's okay. I knew that this was going to happen, and I'm with you. I'm in heaven. I'm rooting for you. I love you, and this is what you can expect. And then you leave them a Bible, and you leave them some clear to understand notes on what is going to happen during tribulation and how they get saved at that point. Make that the very first thing that you do, is tell them how to get saved during tribulation, so that they don't wait, because at any point one of these calamities can kill them, and if they don't get saved first, that's it. It's eternal damnation. So you want them to get saved right away at the beginning of tribulation. And right at that point, it's going to be really hard for people they're going to be so confused. They're going to be traumatized. There's going to be all these children missing, and babies, possibly pregnant women all of a sudden aren't pregnant anymore. And there's going to be all these, like I said, car crashes, plane crashes, and all that stuff. And then who knows what kind of story they're going to come up with to explain this away. So there's going to be confusion. There's going to be people fighting over what happened. There are going to be people saying, "Oh, it was the rapture," and that there'll be pastors that are going to realize afterwards. People that were teaching in the churches, but they didn't really believe what they were preaching, and they get left behind. And then you're going to have people going, well, why are you still here then? You're going to have all these Catholic people left behind. Why are you still here? You should have been gone with them if this was really a rapture. It can't be a rapture then, because look, all these Catholics are still here. They'd be gone, right? All these prosperity preachers, they're all still here, and all their followers are still here. So they're probably going to say something to the effect of, it was aliens that took them. That you can see them pushing all of this UFO stuff now, preparing for that right now, so that the fact that they're pushing it on the news, all of this UFO stuff, that should tell you a lot. If it's being pushed on the news and it's being pushed on TV, if the Hollywood people are pushing this stuff, there is an agenda behind it, guaranteed. They don't say this stuff unless there's some sort of manipulation that they're trying to do behind the scenes. So you need to go the other way. Whatever they're saying, do the opposite, because they don't want what's best for you. So anyway, I leave these letters that explain these things, and then I leave supplies the best as possible, especially things like water and food, because the more they have that you leave for them, the less they will be tempted to take the mark of the beast in order to get food and water. Because that's going to be a very difficult thing to do. People say that they would never take the mark of the beast, but it's very hard to watch your loved ones starve. It's very hard to watch your loved ones who are diabetic go without insulin. You're going to watch people die very quickly. Anyone who's on dependent medications are going to die fairly quickly after the rapture and at the breakdown of normal society. So we want to comfort them the best we can and give them hope, so that they know that their hope is in Jesus, and that all hope is not lost because they missed the rapture, that they still have another chance. But the more we give them information, the better they might resist this delusion that God sends during tribulation, after the rapture. There's going to be a great delusion. And I tell them about that in this letter so that they know that this is going to happen and they can be prepared for it. And you could even send them a letter, say, do not open unless after we disappear in the rapture. That's another thought. Send them letters like that. And maybe they will even get curious and open it ahead of time and be like, oh, wow, I can't believe that they did this, and read all this stuff and be like, well, maybe I better get saved now. I don't want to be left behind and have to go through all this stuff. And maybe they'll get saved before it's too late and they'll be included in the rapture. So just a few thoughts for those of you who haven't already heard me say this. For those of you who have heard me say this, I'm sorry for the repetition, but you never know who's listening, and maybe this will get somebody's family member saved after the rapture. You never know. It's worth a try. So anyway, I'm sorry this was really long. I didn't mean to be on here for so long. This was just supposed to be a short article, but I thought that those were kind of important things to mention. So anyway, I will let you go now, and I would love to hear your thoughts on all of this. And have you made a left behind letter? What did you say in your letter? I'd love to know. What do you leave for your supplies for people? Maybe there's things that other people haven't thought of. Maybe I haven't thought of something that I'd like to leave, because I'm always adding to the stash. Make sure you tell them in your letter where you put the stuff so that they know where to find it too. And also, when if you send them a letter saying only open after the rapture, make sure you tell them about the stuff you're leaving for them so they know, because they might not know to go look at your house at all for the stuff. It may be a perfect stranger that finds your stuff, and be prepared for that. It may not be a family member. It may be someone else, because if something breaks down where people can't drive after this, they may not be able to get to your house, and it might be just a neighbor that you don't even know, or someone that is even a marauder or something. You might get a perfect stranger saved during tribulation from your left behind stuff. So it's keep that in mind. So talk to them in that way. Say, you may not know me at all, I don't know who this is finding my stuff, but welcome to my house. And I leave a letter on my fridge, and then that tells them where all the other stuff is, so that they can find it easily when they first come in. And it basically says if my husband and I are missing, or if we both just suddenly died suddenly or disappeared suddenly, this is where we are. It was called the Rapture, and I explain all of that. And so, and that this means, sadly, that you've been left behind, but don't give up hope, because I'm going to help you get through this right now. And I've been thinking about you ahead of time, and made some plans for you, and been saving up lots of stuff for you. And here's where it all is. So, anyway, I will be talking to you guys. Until next time, I'll be seeing ya. Bye-bye.